My name is Evan, and this happened to me about 5 years ago. I used to live in a small town in Pennsylvania. It was one of those towns where everyone knew each other, but it still had its secrets. I used to hang out a lot with my friend Matt. He and I had known each other since middle school, and we were pretty close. Matt lived in a large Victorian-style home on the outskirts of the town. It had this strange, eerie vibe, but I never thought much of it until one weekend when everything changed. It was a Friday evening, and Matt had invited me over to spend the night. His parents were out of town for the weekend, so it was just the two of us. We had the whole place to ourselves, and at first, it was just a regular night, ordering pizza, playing video games, and messing around like we usually did. Later that night, I noticed something strange. Every so often, I heard a faint knocking sound coming from somewhere in the house. At first, I brushed it off, thinking it was the old pipes or maybe the wind. Mac didn't seem to notice it, so I didn't bring it up, but the sound never stopped. After a while, I asked Matt about it, jokingly, like, "Dude, is your house haunted or something?" He laughed it off and said, "This place makes just weird noises sometimes, because it's an old house and all." But the way he said it felt weird, like he wanted to ignore the topic. At around midnight, we were still in his living room playing a game, when the knocking noise got louder. It wasn't just faint taps anymore. It sounded louder, like it was coming from beneath us. That's when I looked over at Matt, and I noticed that his expression had changed. He wasn't laughing anymore. I looked at Matt and asked him if he heard the noise again. Matt hesitated for a second, and then told me that he heard it too, and not to worry about it. He was trying to ignore it. I pushed a little, asking if there was something going on, and that's when he finally told me about the basement. He told me that his family never went down there. His parents had always kept it locked, and told him never to go down there no matter what. Matt said he didn't know why, but there were rumors, stories his parents told him when he was younger. They used to say that the basement was off limits because something really bad had happened down there a long time ago, but they never explained what exactly had happened. Naturally, I got really curious, and I suggested that we should check it out, but Matt refused. He looked genuinely freaked out by the idea, which only made me want to go down there even more. I figured it was probably just some old family story, nothing real. So, after a bit of convincing, Matt reluctantly agreed to show me the door to the basement, but he made me promise we wouldn't go down there. We walked over to this old wooden door in the hallway that I hadn't even noticed before. It was plain with a rusty lock hanging from it. Matt got a key from the kitchen drawer and unlocked it, slowly opening the door. The smell that came out was musty, like old wood, and something else, but I couldn't quite understand it. It wasn't bad, but it made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I shined my phone's flashlight down the narrow staircase. It was steep and led into complete darkness. The steps creaked as I put one foot on the top stair, and that's when Matt grabbed my arm. He told me that we should seriously not go down there, but I was already too curious. I shrugged him off, saying that it would only take a minute. So I started going down the stairs, and Matt reluctantly followed behind me. When we got to the bottom, the air felt colder. It was almost as if the temperature had dropped by several degrees. The basement was large, with old, dusty furniture scattered around, boxes, a few broken chairs, and some shelves with random junk on them. But something didn't feel right. I couldn't explain it, but there was this heavy feeling, like the air was pressing down on us. Then I saw it, a small iron door built into the far wall, almost hidden behind some old boxes. It looked out of place, like it didn't belong there. I walked closer to it, and that's when Matt grabbed my arm. This time he looked terrified and told me that he doesn't know what's behind the door, but we should never open it. But I couldn't stop myself. I grabbed the handle, and to my surprise, it wasn't locked. It creaked open slowly, revealing a narrow, dark hallway. At the end of the hallway, there was another room, barely visible in the dim light from my phone's flashlight. We stepped inside, and that's when I noticed the walls. They were covered in strange symbols, painted in what looked like dried blood. The air was thick with this terrible metallic smell, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. Matt was whispering behind me, saying that we needed to leave immediately, but I was frozen in the place. Then we heard it, the sound of footsteps coming from the room. At the end of the hallway, we both froze, staring down the dark corridor. The footsteps grew louder, and that's when I saw it. A tall, dark shadow figure standing at the end of the hallway. It was so tall that I knew it wasn't human at all. It was staring directly at us. That was enough for me. I grabbed Matt and we bolted up the stairs, slamming the basement door behind us. We didn't say a word to each other. We just sat there in silence, trying to process what had just happened. After that night, Matt told me that his parents sold the house and moved a few months later. He never spoke about the basement again, and I never asked. To this day, I don't know what we stumbled upon down there, but whatever it was, I'll never forget the feeling of dread that washed over me when we heard those footsteps. It wasn't human, I'm sure of that. And I'm just glad that we got out of there before we could really find out what it really was.